You just do it. And I don't want to hear any complaints about it. And if you have a complaint, put it down below and I'll delete it.
It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show.
Well, a warm welcome to you all. I'm JJ. I'm a life coach and I eat mostly meat.
I'm Eric. I'm a novelist and I eat meat and coffee and a little bit of NCT oil. Mm-hmm. And today is day 856 of us doing carnivore. Although for me, it's probably fewer days. But that's when we started.
Yes, that was back in October of 2022. So that is 2.3 years ago.
Or if you think in terms of months like new parents do, 28 months.
28. We have a 28-month carnivore toddler.
We do.
Sort of. Not
And,
a real one.
when moms say, oh, I've got a 28-month-old, I'm like, 2.3 years. I've got to do math. I shouldn't have to do math about babies.
And that's why we've done the math for you.
That's right.
So-
It's also 122 weeks, if that is of any use to you.
Okay.
So now everybody's covered. So the journey has been incredible, and we are going to immediately talk about the physical transformation that we've experienced. So here's JJ. Mm-hmm. This is you before.
This is me. When was this? 2021, I think.
Yeah. We was showing off to ourselves a house we were trying to buy. We didn't even own it at this time.
No, we did not. And right away, what I see here is how puffy that I was. Now, I know I'm middle-aged, so I wasn't horrible, but compared to where I am now, it's a pretty dramatic result.
It's astonishing. And I know for a fact that in that moment, I wasn't thinking about either of us being super overweight.
No.
Which we're clearly not. She's clearly not super overweight.
No.
But could you have imagined that you were going to adopt any sort of eating plan that would bring you to where you are now?
No, I didn't, because I'm not a real serial dieter. And so I was looking for something, I knew if I did do a weight plan, it had to be easy, it had to be simple, etc. But I couldn't have conceived that this change would have happened, and that I would have a completely different body than I've ever had in my entire life.
So do you have a sense of like what your weight and measurements were back at this time?
Yeah, I do. I was about 157, I think, at my highest. And I'm 5'3 3/4. It's very important. But around 5'4", and 157 pounds. And I was wearing a snug size 12-ish probably at this time. Yeah, so dramatically different from where I am. And that was my heaviest, other than pregnancy, this is about my heaviest ever. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So are you willing to share what your size and weight is now that you are only 29?
Yeah.
Because you were 52 in that? 51?
50-ish.
50-ish, yeah.
Yeah, 50-ish.
So now you're 29.
So now I'm 29. And I've lost 30 pounds. So I weigh in right around 127-ish. And I wear about a size 4 to 6, depending. So, yeah. And that is the size that I used to wear in high school, was about a 4 to 6. And yet my body in high school was actually softer than it is now. Now I have much more muscle definition, and just things have shifted. I honestly think that in my youth, I had that fat infiltration in my muscles because my thighs, which were never fat, well, I shouldn't say never. When I was young, they were not fat. They are totally different definition and shape now. So there must have been something going on.
Yeah. And so 30-pound difference.
30-pound difference.
But it sounds like it's probably weight loss plus muscle gain.
Yeah.
So it's a much more significant body change than just a 30-pound fat loss.
Right. The 30 pounds sounds great, but the astonishing thing is the body recomposition, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we don't have fancy video of me walking around that we can do a comparison with. But we're going to take a look at this picture. Here I am standing with a tree we were planting, which died. Now I know how not to plant an apple tree.
Yep.
And next to it is going to be me now standing with holding a shovel or some object. And now I was, I had a bit of a pot belly. Never drank beer, so I didn't have the Wisconsin beer belly. That's very common here. But at that time, I was around 206 pounds, close to my heaviest that I ever got. That was the heaviest I ever got. And I have now dipped down to 169, but this morning I was at 171. But that's within the usual fluctuations anyway. So what's the math on that? How much weight is that lost? If we go to 170, that's 36 pounds.
Yep.
So not too shabby.
No.
And I would also say that I've had body recomposition.
I would absolutely say that because when you have lost, you've been more of the cereal dieter than I have.
Yeah.
And when you've been in around 170, you have looked gaunt and unhealthy in the past.
And I don't look gaunt now.
No, you don't. Not at all. Not at all.
So now I had done keto several times before and had lost weight successfully every time I did it. But keto didn't get me all the way there. And there was one reason.
What is that reason?
And that was I cannot moderate carbs.
No.
And you can.
I can.
But keto wasn't a friend to you for some reason.
Keto didn't do anything for me.
It's kind of strange, isn't it?
Again, I wasn't a cereal dieter, but I did try keto and I did dip my toe in it here and there. And it wasn't easy for me because trying to get those macros right and figure out how much cheese to add to my broccoli at night so I could gag it down was not really useful. And I didn't ever seem to lose weight. So it was like this torture diet that didn't lead to any results.
Right.
Yeah.
So in addition to body composition changes, you had a very big difference or change related to your body that you didn't even notice right away.
No, I didn't.
Until you were looking in the mirror and going, what happened? Tell us about that.
It was actually, I think you're referring to the fact that I have no cellulite anymore. And I used to have it on my thighs. I've had it for decades, a little bit. I wasn't horrible, but I definitely had it. And all of a sudden, we were recording a video for this channel, and I realized, wait a minute, my cellulite's gone.
Now, when you said it wasn't horrible, did you like it before?
Well, no, not at all.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where 10 is the worst case you've ever seen.
Oh, I was probably I'm going to put myself at maybe a 7, sort of average middle age. I know some people trend toward it greatly, so I wasn't like one of those, but it was, it was that normal middle age. I had the middle age spread, the middle age weight gain, the middle age cellulite. Yeah.
The middle-aged husband.
So yeah, and what was funny is at our old house, we had can lights in the ceiling right above our full-length mirror. And so, boy, that really makes it pop.
It looks like the moon.
So I did not love that. And it was, like I said, it was astonishing when I realized it was gone because I thought it was just lax skin. Like I knew weight is sort of involved, but yet I just thought it was more middle-aged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't have cellulite to lose. So that wasn't something that I really experienced.
No.
But, obviously I've lost a lot of fat. And I think for me, the visceral fat loss has been very significant.
Yes.
Because even when I had, when we had done Weight Watchers all those years ago, 20 some years ago, I got down to about 170. And while I was gaunt looking, I still had the protruding weird belly that was indicative of a lot of visceral fat. And of course I did, because I was using my Weight Watchers points to eat as many carbs as I possibly could fit in.
Yeah,
during
we
the
did.
day. And so that was keeping insulin up, which was then, keeping that lipolysis from happening in the visceral fat.
Well, and the other thing, visceral fat, but also you have a smaller frame. You're not a real stocky.
I'm 6 foot tall.
Yeah. You're not a real stocky, big boned guy. And so since you've been doing this way of eating, you've gotten sort of more of that pronounced inverse triangle of a man where your shoulders are bigger and it comes more down to a tapered waist.
Yeah, less Michelin man.
Well, you were never Michelin man, but you were just a little more straight up and down. You didn't have the V.
Well, my shoulders got a little broader.
Yeah.
Just probably muscle mass. But also my waist got thinner.
But again, with the other ways of dieting that we've done in the past, you must have lost muscle mass, or you didn't have it to begin with. I don't know. What was the deal?
I don't know, because I did train. Now, I wasn't a bodybuilder.
No.
But I went through long phases of doing really hard kettlebell workouts, sort of like CrossFit. But I didn't ever eat that much protein. I mean, I have a whey shake and some chicken breast, and I thought that would be enough, but I wasn't really tracking it.
No.
And now I know I wasn't even close to the right protein that I needed for that.
No.
So the physical transformation is a big part of it. My clothes size has changed, but it's men's clothes. So for me, I don't know what a size 4 or 6 means. That's like, you might as well have said something to me in French or German, because I don't understand it. But my shirt size has always been a large.
Yep.
And then it was always sort of a little too tight when I was at the top levels, but I was unwilling to get an XL. Well, then all of a sudden I started to test the medium, and that's what this polo shirt is. It's an M. And when I first got it, it was a little snug, but now it's perfectly comfortable and loose. And I don't think I can go down a size.
No, I think you're too tall for
I'll
that.
look like Simon Cowell in his little baby tees. Nobody even knows who Simon Cowell is anymore, probably. But and then my pant size, when I was in high school, my waist size was always a 32. I don't know. That's the American number. And then I stayed in a 32, and my belly just kind of muffined around it. And then I eventually gave in my 30s to a 34, and then a 36. And then I remember I made that button extender out of an old pair of jeans so I could fit in them. Well, now I can fit into a 31 waist. Not actually that common of a size to find in the stores, but you can get them online. And that's crazy to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just absolutely insane.
Insane.
So that's been my transformation on that end. Now, if we talk about non-scale victories and benefits, you did talk about the cellulite thing, but you have some others.
I do. Yes. In the video that you saw, I was dealing with an old ankle injury, decades old, and having pain from it every single day, and starting to wonder if I needed to get surgery for it while I'm in my 50s rather than waiting until I'm in my 60s, and when do you pull the trigger on that type of thing? And so walking around, but in some pain most of the time. And now I have no ankle pain. It's extremely rare if I get a little bit of an ache. And it used to sort of pop out. The tendon would shift. The tendon doesn't shift anymore. I don't understand how that's possible, because supposedly they can't heal or tighten or anything. But so that is a huge win for me to be able to walk around without that pain.
Well, when you say supposedly they can't heal, was that something a doctor said?
Yeah.
So this is really central to the whole carnivore movement, is discovering that things that can't heal do if it's in the context of a totally different way of eating. But in the doctor's experience, he'd never seen it heal. I assume.
Yes, it was a he.
He had never seen it heal because every single one of his patients was eating crap.
Yeah. Or even if not eating crap, eating a heavily plant-based based diet.
Inflammatory.
Yeah, inflammatory.
Which is supposedly inflammatory, but
not
uninflammatory, non-inflammatory.
non-inflammatory. Yeah.
So, but my view, and of course it's just a belief, what do I know?
Yeah.
Is that people who go to Whole Foods plant-based get some benefits because they're removing things that are worse.
Yeah.
But then they're still at this level of inflammation, many, because they're consuming the plants, which are very difficult for the body to process. So that was the ankle thing.
That was the ankle thing. Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, definitely. I am hypothyroid like so many, especially women, and where it's becoming the norm as well. I've been able to cut my thyroid supplementation dramatically. So while I'm still on the medication, it tells me that my hormones are balancing. Thyroid is a hormone. And I know this to be true as well because I've also been able to cut my bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, which again makes me believe that my body doesn't need as much exogenous help anymore. It is doing the work that it needs to do by itself.
And you're giving it a ton of fat.
And I'm giving it a ton of fat to feed those hormones.
Was Dr. Bright influential in that thinking?
Yes. For a big chunk of my carnivore journey early on, I didn't focus on fat as much. But as she became more and more prevalent in my consciousness, I started adding more and more fat to my diet. So yes, I definitely think that has been, adding the fat is vital for brain health and for hormone health. And for me, hormone health has been my chronic issue since puberty, basically. Yeah. So for me to be seeing these gains in my hormones, which we can talk about in a moment, is phenomenal.
Well, from my point of view, not being, feeling what the hormone effect is for you, my point of view is that your mood is so incredibly good.
Yes.
Like 90% of the time.
Yes.
Since making this change.
Yes. When my hormones are not balanced, I experience weight gain. So that's number one. Like that's when I know things are wonky, is when I would gain weight quickly. But I'd experience a mild depression when my hormones are off whack. I experience more overwhelm. Even if I don't get down to depression, I get overwhelmed much easier. And just frustrated. It's a whole different mental state. And also lower energy. Remember so he was working outside the home when I was at my worst and napping twice a day. You missed that.
I did.
And I kept it from you because I thought it was pathetic that I was in my 30s and couldn't make it through the day. But since you've been home, I mean, napping was a fairly regular thing for me.
Sometimes it was necessary.
Why?
Because you had bad attitude.
Yes, I did. And it was funny because bad attitude, right? So he would sometimes tell me, I think you've got bad attitude and might need to take a nap. And it wasn't like fighting words. I was like, oh yeah, you're right. I totally need to just shut down for a little while. So that has been my greatest non-scale victory. If I gained all the weight back, I would totally still be doing this for those benefits right there. The mood and the energy based on my hormonal balance is phenomenal. So yeah.
So we don't know if there were other chronic issues necessarily that were kind of bubbling beneath the surface for you. But you've definitely had signs in your blood work of inflammation that have lingered.
Yes, I tended to have a higher CRP, HSCRP, sign of inflammation in my blood draws. And also my doctor was seeing signs of metabolic syndrome, our integrative doctor, not the general practitioner at that point. Cause I wasn't that overweight. I was a middle-aged woman, little normal stuff. But my integrative doctor was definitely seeing me move toward that metabolic disease.
Yeah, he was seeing A1C climbing, insulin climbing.
Yeah.
And maybe the quality of your LDL small particles were not the greatest. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That typical stuff that, your general practitioner isn't ever going to look at. They might look at your A1C, but that's about it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's by far my non-scale victory is that I love the ankle and I love the hormonal balance that leads to mood improvement and energy improvement.
Yeah.
I have so much energy now. It is insane. I went to a play with friends on Friday night, and then I helped support a life coaching workshop for 2 days straight online on Zoom, 9 hours a day about. I was fine.
Well, you are totally fine. Yeah.
Normally, that would lay me out for days. Back in the day, that would lay me out for days. Especially Monday, I would have been just like a zombie.
Now, she does a lot of computer-based work. And if she doesn't take hold of herself, she will simply just keep doing it until bedtime. Mm-hmm. And very often does it anyway. And so if she moves from her computer to her iPad and her mean little fingers they type so fast and they type mean because she's like the focus that she can bring to bear on whatever she's doing is extreme and used to suffer from bad brain fog.
Oh yeah, that's right. That was another issue was brain fog.
It's a thing of the past most of the time, unless you came down with a bug recently, but that was about it.
Yeah. Brain fog was the worst in my 30s, but something I experienced regularly. And just by about 7:30 at night, the brain was done. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, the brain is not done until very late now. No, most nights I can get to sleep by about 11. But yeah, I have such focus, such clarity, and it's incredible because I'm sure many of you know that searching for words type of a feeling. Again, I think that's sort of considered this normal part of aging, and it doesn't have to be. So I feel like I'm putting out my best work now and doing it again with less overwhelm, less stress, just pointing myself at it and going.
So perhaps the biggest non-scale victory that I had was weaning off of my SSRI.
Yes.
Which I had been on for a couple of years at the time. And I had read Dr. Georgia Eads' Take a Drink, because we talk about her every single time, book, Change Your Diet, Change Your Mind, and also Chris Palmer's Brain Energy. And it got me very excited about the idea of being able to improve my brain health with ketosis. Now, I wasn't tracking too closely at the time, but I had been carnivore for, I don't know, maybe 9 months or something. And I said, you know what? I think maybe I can test this out and wean off of this. So I was able to do that under a doctor prescribed protocol. And the tapering was really pretty low side effect, low backlash. I had very few symptoms that were negative, and they only lasted a day and a half. And then I was sort of back to my normal. So it was a fairly quick taper. And after I finished, I was done.
Yeah.
Now I have had some anxiety creep back more recently. And I think now I have sorted that out because I did a higher fat, higher ketosis run to get, more ketones going. And I think that was partly it. It wasn't really that I needed more fat. It was that I needed to deplete glycogen to favor ketones. And then if I get in that state, then my normal carnivore diet, which is probably 70-30, 65-35 for the calories from fat to protein, can keep me going at that sort of over 1 millimole level of ketosis. And in Dr. Georgia Eads' book, they're targeting 1 to 3 typically. Now it's very
1 to 3
millimole per,
deciliter?
Okay. Or liter. And, but that is different than if you're doing therapeutic ketosis for some other illness, like say cancer or something, then the ketones, might need to be even higher.
Yeah.
But, I've been doing really great.
Yeah, you have. We started to have, a lot of your issues were seasonal, tended to be more seasonal.
Yeah.
And so, winter is coming was the truth.
Yeah.
And so this year we did start to see that winter stuff coming. And of course, in the past, you could lean into sugar.
Yes.
Right? The holidays. So
Yeah.
what would happen is his birthday's in November, Thanksgiving, Christmas. His mood's great. He's having a great time. He's eating all the sugar. He's loving the holidays. And then, honest to God, December 26th, he would fall off the cliff. And so this year, he didn't eat all the stuff. And so the cliff was there a little sooner.
Yeah, I think so.
But not as bad as it used to be. Mm-hmm. And then when you shifted in early January to the higher fat, you started doing some mindset work too. Mm-hmm. Holy cow, you came out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it continues to improve. So I think that there was a little bit of it was a very delayed sort of fuse on that eventually I had to deal with being a little more deliberate about the diet because this whole entire time, this 856 days, she's been generally more compliant than I have, although I've been pretty compliant.
Oh, yeah.
But I've had a few stretches where it was it wasn't even keto. It was like a lot of carnivore style meals, but then there was more frequent cheat events. And that is just not a way to sustain this way of eating. And, but I had mentioned on this channel many times that I never banished my sweet craving. Many carnivores talk about that. And, when I went to high fat, I eliminated all the artificial sweeteners, including what was in Element or Salty, the electrolyte supplement. I actually have stopped consuming them entirely right now. And once I got that last little bit of daily sweetness out of my life, I really don't get that little bug that goes, something sweet would be really good right now. So far, so good. My mind just does not really turn around that. And it really required me getting that artificial sweetener out of my diet.
Well, and even in those minuscule salty or Element type of amounts.
It's crazy. When I was, I guess college, I smoked for a couple of years. And the reason I did was because I was an absolute idiot. But I had the movie Die Hard. John McClane, defeats one of the bad guys and takes his foreign cigarettes and smokes them. And something about those scenes made me want to try it and do it. I was like 18 or 19 at the time. I should have known better. But when I decided to quit, I had to face something very similar to giving up the sugar and even the artificial sweeteners, which was, it was so much in my mind that it was really pulling me down. It was a bummer. And the point being is that it was hard for me, both when I smoked, to imagine what it would be like going through certain events in my day without that in my life. The same thing with the sweetness. Imagining certain times of day where I would grab like a diet soda of some sort and then go, that moment's going to come, that enjoyment, that little moment in time that kind of build my day around, I'm stopping that. How am I going to live happily? And because I'm not in it, I can't imagine what it feels like.
Yeah.
And only after you get past it and you don't have the craving, then it's like, oh, well, it's nothing. And so it's hard to convince yourself when you have the addiction that it will be a nothing after you get over it. And I don't know what to do about that. Other than to tell you, if you're battling with that, it really becomes a nothing. And it actually happens really quick when you just get all of the sweet out and you make sure you're getting plenty of fat. And it happened. And it wasn't even something I noticed because I wasn't thinking about it. And the only time I thought about it was when I opened the refrigerator and I saw the old diet soda in there that I no longer drank. And I'm like, oh, I don't even particularly need that. So that was a big win for me. And there's now evidence that aspartame is very bad for cardiac health. We'll see if that stands up, but it seems logical that it's bad. But that was a big win. So we've talked about our physical transformation, our off-scale stuff. What else do you have?
Well, you just mentioned something that I think we can just take note of too, is people call it food freedom.
Yes.
So what you described it with sweetness. Do you notice any other food freedom or something you'd put under that?
Well, yeah, all of my old favorite carby foods, from pizza to mac and cheese to spaghetti and bread, I'd never think about them. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
When I see like a commercial for that stuff, I'm like, that is literally poison. It's not food. And I didn't even talk about my biggest non-scale victories.
Well, other than the SSRI, no, you did not.
IBS.
Oh my gosh. That one usually comes up almost first. Yeah.
Out the window.
Yeah.
Reflux, gone. So those are huge quality of life benefits. And I've had a nagging phlegmy cough for decades.
Always.
And it is slowly decreasing.
I've never said this. You're hearing it here. When you were in high school,
Yeah.
you had this little
Yeah.
thing you would do with clearing your throat. It was a certain way of doing it. And that went back to high school.
Yeah, I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Because I always had something in the back of my throat that was nagging and bothering me. And it's been reducing and reducing. I don't do like it kind of was like a smoker's cough, but it was kind of a wet cough. And I've had it for so long. And it's just starting to go away. And that's a huge quality of life because it was disgusting. To me and everybody around me.
Well, honestly, for me, the lessening of anxiety and the IBS are probably even more of a quality life improvement for me.
Speaking of gut problems, do you remember I was doing Tim Ferriss's Slow Carb, which featured a ton of lentils?
Yes, I do.
And what lentils were was basically fuel for the blimp that was me.
Oh my goodness. Oh.
And it was just unbelievable. I could be the source of energy for a nation if you just feed me enough lentils.
I just had a friend of mine say, I just love, someone was eating a bean burrito. Yeah. She's like, oh, I love beans, but they do not love me. and I just throw in these little, that's because plants are trying to kill you. They have toxins. They don't want to be digested.
So one of the big transformations about us that may not be so great is we're know-it-alls. And everybody we see who has any sort of problem, we know the solution.
But we don't actually say it. Now, I did slip in a little bit. Well, yeah, I'll slip in a little bit there, here and there, but not much. Not much.
So JJ, if you had a message for somebody who was watching this going, I'm thinking about trying carnivore, what would you say to them?
I would say, number one, just do it. Do it as easily as you can. So a lot of the doctors, Dr. Berry, Binge Berry to Build Beliefs, but a lot of people talk about eat the meat you like, eat the meat you can afford. And that's what I would say. Just start there. Don't worry about the panda massaged, grass-fed, that you have to be eating ribeyes for every meal. Like, don't worry all about that. Just get started. And you can start at your very next meal.
I think that's great.
Yeah, just start it.
Now, my guess is that most people coming to carnivore will have probably passed through keto at some point. And maybe have had success with it. I mean, Kerry Mann talks about this. He had a lot of progress on keto, but like me, he can't moderate. And so just getting rid of the carbs was the whole key to the whole thing.
Someone I spoke to, she came to me and said, "Wow, you look great. Tell me what you're doing, etc." And she's dabbled in keto as well. And she found it very hard. And I said, "I know this sounds crazy, but keto is harder. And if you just focus on meat, things get really easy." And again, that doesn't mean you don't have cravings. It doesn't mean you don't have social interactions that you have to deal with, all that stuff. But when you just make it about meat, everything else falls away. Yeah.
Yeah. You can have some eggs.
Yeah.
You can have some butter if it agrees with you.
Yep. Dairy if it agrees.
Sardines. I've been eating a lot of sardines.
Yeah, you have.
So let's talk about that very briefly. So I eat eggs, steak, bacon, sardines. I just had a ground beef meal I made yesterday. I don't love it unless it's a hamburger, but then I want cheese and other things with it. No bun, obviously. So I don't tend to have hamburgers unless we're traveling. And coffee. And that's about it.
And you want to know what I have?
Yeah.
So I've been lately eating from Courtney Luna's cookbook, the Cobb salad, which does not contain any veggies. It is bacon, hard-boiled egg, chicken, blue cheese, and I throw a little vinaigrette on there, homemade, And then steaks and ground beef, an occasional omelet with meat and cheese in it. And that is mostly it, I think, for me. Yeah. Oh, occasionally I'll get a craving for liverwurst type Braunschweiger type sausage. So when that happens, I'll throw that in the mix, have it with a little mustard. I think that's about it.
And you've done eating windows for a long time.
Yes.
And longer fasts. I've been doing an eating window about 6 to 8 hours every day, but I don't adhere to it with rigidity just because I don't feel like it.
No. And for me, when I had more body fat, I was able to fast more regularly and keep a tighter eating window. So it would usually be 6 hours, no more than 6 hours. And since I have lost a lot of the fuel that is in my body and on my body, I do find that my eating window needs to be a little longer sometimes. Sometimes it's more like 8 hours. And I don't do the longer fasts as frequently because I'm hungry. I don't have as much fuel in me, and I don't really want to lose a bunch more weight at all.
You need to know yourself and know what kind of energy to bring to something. For me, always thinking of everything as an experiment and something to explore and play with makes it way more fun and more interesting. So if, like, for instance, I've had cycled through beef aversions to where I could barely get a steak down, and that required, playing with some different spices and flavors and playing with some sauces. And then all of a sudden, it suddenly was good again. And I ate 2 in a row that one day. That was crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I don't eat a massive volume of food. So, sometimes you'll see someone who's 6'5" and 250 pounds can put down 2 or 3 pounds of steak in one sitting. I cannot do that.
No.
Nor do I need to. But I would say, eat until you're full. If you're going to make this move into carnivore, come up with a phrase or a sentence that is positive about what you want it to do and what it is going to do for you. Make it a positive statement about what you want and then repeat it over and over and over and over instead of thinking about what you don't have. And that will do about 35% of the work of carnivore right there out of the gate and make it way easier. I think it's time to sign off.
All right. Excellent.
So every day stronger.
Every day more blessed.
Their lipids are high, their doctors are worried, they're both gonna die. This LDL harmless. They sure hope it's so. It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show. Salad is toxic, seed oils are doom. They rub on tallow like greasy perfume. Ribeyes and bacon, that's all they know. It's the JJ and Eric Carnivore Show. No wheat, no kale, they're laughing at greens. 18-hour fasts are their favorite routines. Sugars for suckers, they're chomping on fat. Streaming to you live from a tallow flat. Eric's got muscles, JJ's got zen. They're coming to chat with their carnivore friends. So toss out the lettuce, embrace the beef glow.